Hello everybody, it's Larry and welcome to today's video, and we're going to give you a new feature, talk about a new feature with Thrulines that you're going to find extremely useful, particularly if you use Thrulines a lot and you've been doing like myself and many people have, taking that Thrulines information, putting it into, like Family Tree Maker or just entering it into your tree on Ancestry and then going back and sourcing them and validating it to see if it's correct. Well, now they've added a new feature to it that really is handy. And to explain it better, I'm going to start by talking about what it is. So, not what it is because it's a Thrulines feature, but what it really is doing. When we take our DNA test, we get a list of DNA matches. And remember this filter that says matches you haven't viewed. So when you get a bunch of matches that come in, here's a brand spanking new one. We got a close 467 centimorgans that's tested. I actually know who this is. This is another one on my father's side that's come in. And then of course a bunch further out, which is what you typically see is the further out. These are the ones that, hey, these are breakthroughs. But the point being that these are matches you haven't yet viewed. And as people take these tests, okay, now we're going to go back over to Thrulines. Then on Thrulines, they get added in. They get stitched together. But which one of these people have the new people? Can you tell just by looking? Well, yeah, you can. We're going to look at my wife's test because it really is a little easier. She's got more and it's easier there. So on the filters, right here on the filters, the new one, very first one, ancestors with new DNA matches. And if you click on that, it filters out all of the others. Okay, so I'm going to go back to all. See here, there's 210 on the all. If I was going through there to find out which ones have new DNA matches, can you imagine clicking on this one and then looking at them all, comparing it to the tree, clicking on that one, looking at all, look at my tree, and doing that over and over and over for all 210? Now, apologies for the quick scroll here. Even if I was to come down here and notice this blue bar at the top that says updated, I'd have to scroll. There's another one there. So of those 8, there's 2 of them down here at the bottom. If I scroll backwards, again, does this look like it'd be easy to find doing this way? There's 2 more. Not really. So this is an extremely handy tool to be able to do that. And now when you hover over it, see right here where it says 2 new, 2 new, 1 new. It tells you how many are new that are actually in there. So we're going to click on this one. And while we're here, I want to talk about something else that I get asked a lot on Thrulines. And it's really not big enough for a video topic in and of itself. So we're just going to kind of squeeze it in here. Notice here where it says Mary Polly Jolly and an identical spelling, Mary Polly Jolly. 1816, 1886, 1816, 1886. Now, you and I look at this and we say, well, these are the same. Why did Thrulines separate that? And I get that all the time. Now, most common is that a parent or a spouse is either spelled different or they have a different birth or death year in a name, or maybe the kids have a different spelling. So we're going to look at these, and since they have evaluate, we can click on this. And it's going to bring up the trees. Now, if you haven't seen the video, any of these with evaluate, you just click on them and it brings up this handy box on the side with a lot of things to look at. We're going to look at, here are trees linked to the DNA matches. So we're going to look at this first one. And it may have family expanded or not expanded. You can just click that, right here on the right, click it to expand it. Okay, we're going to look at this. Josiah McCraw, 1811, 1886. Keziah Jolly, 71 through 87, or 71 through 70. So wow, nice long lifespan there. And then here, James Jolly, 76 through 53. And take particular note of Keziah Jolly, okay? So now we looked at this one. We're going to look at the other Mary Polly, okay? And here are the trees DNA linked to this group, okay? So we're going to look at the first one, Shay Pearson. Now, notice right here, Keziah, and the slash, and that's all one word. So that means that the parent was different than it was over here, because the computer is saying, okay, is the first letter the same, second letter the same, third letter the same? Wait a minute, I've got letter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The other one doesn't have that. These are obviously different names. The computer doesn't have that ability like we do to look at this high level and say, that's probably the same person. So let's go back and let's look at the next one. So we look at this one and notice here the spelling: capital M, little c, capital R, capital A, capital W. It's different. Okay, and that's the spouse. There aren't the parents there. So this, stitched it in with this group instead of this group because it felt like it was more akin to this one. And because they didn't have, the parents, then that Kesaya didn't negate this one being matched to them. And it was able to say, okay, the capitals and this one, it matches here. Okay, so as you go through, each one will have a little something that's just a little bit different than the others. Otherwise, it does stitch them together. It does a great job stitching them together. But I get asked all the time, why does it have 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 of the same person? And, sometimes it's because, let's say Mary Polly was married to husband number 1 and had kids. And then here, Mary Polly was married to husband number 2 and had kids. And Mary Polly potentially to husband 3 and had kids. And people come up and they have all the different kids as they are researching their family trees, which are different, and they all end up being the same Mary Polly. But because all the family members surrounding them are different, Thrulines is going to say, hey, I don't know for sure that they're the same, so I'm not going to mark them as the same, because if it marks it the same and it's wrong, now it's created a problem. But if it marks them different and they actually be the same, well, we get to see it and determine why and what and combine those on our own. And it's not, there's no harm if we do the combination. If the computer did the combination, it would kind of throw us on potentially some really mistaken paths. Let's say it connected Mary Polly to Elizabeth, Elizabeth J for whatever reason, and it made that artificial connection because it thought that it was there. One more thing I'm going to talk about over here on the privates. Now, a lot of people get talked into saying, hey, you've done your tree, and I get this. The person here, maybe this person's alive and they want to keep this private. Potentially even this one's alive. This one born in 1859, they're not alive, and neither is this person. And these can be the clue for somebody like myself who had a DNA surprise. I'm trying to distinguish which one of these family lines that I fall in under. That information could be what makes the breakthrough for me. And I know a lot of people say, hey, if you haven't proven your tree, please don't spread bad trees. Well, if you have good links, and maybe you've linked some of those together incorrectly, that's still clues. We've learned the genealogy field has matured enough now. We should not be accepting just because somebody else put it. We should take it, maybe move it into Family Tree Maker or something like that, and then begin researching every node. Okay, we don't take Thrulines 100%. We don't take anybody's tree at 100%. That's just not good. Because I would venture that 90% or more of all the trees out there have mistakes or serious mistakes, and you could probably honestly go much higher to 95, maybe 98, 99 if you want to really get nitpicky about every little thing in the tree from beginning to end of what people post. I'd venture to say very few people have only posted 100% pristine information and been DNA proven. And I'm going to give you an example of that. I had a DNA surprise. For those of you who watched the channel for a while, you know my story. For those of you who don't, let me give it to you briefly. I was born Larry Basie. I was adopted Larry Jones at age 1. I have a birth certificate now that says I'm Larry Jones. My father's Joe Jones. Okay? I have, my birth certificate that has him. I have his information in his birth certificate for his parents. I have the land records. I can trace the Jones family back to the 1700s. Okay, through Jonesboro, Arkansas, through Paragould, all the way back, for hundreds of years. That is a pristine tree. It is so well documented. It is without refute as far as the paper. But it's not my biological family. When I was 24, I was told that, hey, you're Larry Basie. When you were born a Basie. So I researched that back. In Dwight Basie's obituary, I'm listed as his son. His only biological son. I'm listed that way. And I have a birth certificate, and my parents, my mother and he were married at the time of my birth. I have video of him bringing me home from the hospital when I was 2 days old because he was my father. So I researched that for over 30 years, 35 years. And boom, suddenly I take a DNA test. He's not my father either. I have a very pristine family tree for the Basie family, and I bet the Basies are very appreciative of that. Not my biological family. So now I have a Brown family tree. And so when looking through it, getting these clues were huge for me. And if I went to the DNA matches, if you want to see how important that is, okay, here's my daughter, my mother. They were part of this testing adventure too. But look at this. All these blues, these are on my father's side. These are people helping me figure it out. Okay, there's one more that slipped in for my mother's, but look at those blues. Okay, look at the blues. Okay, there's another. These are people from here all the way up. People talk about, hey Larry, you have all these close matches. Well, okay, I I didn't have these matches at one point. Everything up here was all new after I was figuring out who my biological father was, when I realized that Dwight Basie wasn't. And that was after my uncle Larry Basie, took his DNA test, and that's who I'm named after. I'm named after Larry Basie. But once he took his DNA test, I realized that, I was not biologically related. So, when you don't put that information out there, it makes it harder for that other person. If you have valid reasons for connecting those people, then that is helpful. Even if some of it is incorrect, if just some of it's correct, that is helpful information. So we're going to go back to that Thrulines information, and I just want to show you on, let's go back to my wife's test, and then we're going to, oops, I went to the DNA, sorry there. We'll go to the Thrulines, go to my wife's test, and we're going to pull up that first person again and go over to the far right. So we do the filter. Again, great tool. Thank you, Ancestry, for that. We're going to scroll all the way to the right. This person over on the far right, I guarantee you, has been told, hey, unless you know your tree is right, don't put anything. And if I've eliminated those other branches, and I know that it's this fifth or sixth or whatever spouse, because the others I've determined is I'm not in that line close enough. I've got to be under this line somehow. I get it. This person may be still alive, perhaps this one. But this person born around 1860 is not alive, and neither is the one born, around 1820. We can show who those are, and that can be very helpful for somebody who's got a DNA surprise, or just somebody trying to figure out their family. Again, the burden is on the recipient to determine if this is correct. My tree for the Jones, it's good. And for those people who turn out to be biologically related to that tree, great. Will it show up in their through lines? No. And that's sad, because I have a very nice tree for Joneses that'll never show up and help anybody DNA-wise, because I'm not DNA related unto a Jones. I have a fantastic Basie tree. Now, it will show up because I've linked it to my uncle, and therefore, because he links up and the tree links up, a lot of people have contacted me and been able to help, get their information from that tree. It's not an accurate tree to me. I thought it was an accurate tree to me, and I had it posted online, but it turned out all the people that I put in that tree as far as being related to me on that side were not actually related to me. So I think, with DNA, we're in kind of this new area. We need to really rethink our whole paradigm. A lot of people give advice, say, hey, Larry, you need to be advising people to put their stuff out, and it needs to be private and unsearchable. And thank God this person at least made it searchable. But people say you need to make it private and unsearchable. If you do that, and if you recommend that to people, please stop. When they make it private and unsearchable means it will not stitch to through lines. You've just stopped somebody from finding their biological family. So please stop the advice of making it unsearchable. That hurts the person who's taken the time and effort for a particular reason to use the DNA test to find that information. You basically handicap them from finding that information. And so at least private and searchable, which is what that person on the far right did. They made it private and searchable. So they can search it. They now get the benefits of the through lines, and they can connect to all these other people. Now, if all these other people, which I'm going to, venture that, all of these probably don't have paper trails all the way up. So if all these other people did the same thing and made theirs private searchable, they made it searchable, so you'd find it, and it's private. This would be private. You would never know Sylvia. This is private. You'd never know Elizabeth. This is private. You'd never know Mary. And you might think that there was an extra person because maybe you had these other Marys showed up private instead of as Mary, and you weren't able to intelligently connect them. So it really does change the way we look at things. I mean, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely the correct advice. Make it private and unsearchable. Because through lines didn't exist. DNA circles didn't exist, and DNA wasn't being used the way it is today. But with DNA today, that is a handicap to everybody you advise that to. So for, for the people like who this channel is trying to help, those with DNA surprises, trying to find their biological families and things of that nature, whenever you tell them and advise them to make their trees private and unsearchable, you are potentially keeping them from ever finding their family. Please don't do that. All right, so didn't mean to get off on that, but I get that quite a bit when I'm talking about this, and there's another one, a topic that I get when I go over these, so I'll talk about that soon enough. You'll understand what I do. But remember, when you're dealing with the through lines, you use the filter. I've got 178 ancestors. 3 of them have new DNA matches, so I can click on that and go right to them. Again, I will use my wife. It's just a better one because she's got 8 there. She got 210, gets to the 8. They'll have updated in the top right. You can hover over and see how many there are. So when you go through each one of those, and in some cases like this, there might be a lot. In this one, there's 148 matches, and you might have to determine, okay, I've got Meredith, I've got Jesse. Oh, Sarah's new. Okay, that might be how you find it. The other thing, some of them will be not quite as big. There's 29 relationships only, and so you want to go through there and you find it and say, oh, I didn't have the Oliver, so this is new. And one other way you can find out who's new, obviously, is go to your DNA matches, do your filter, and find the ones that are here. And if they're in your through lines, looky right here. See this common ancestor? I know that Randolph Tyler, managed by Maria M. Nobles, there's 4,600 people in his tree. It says common ancestor right here. Okay, I know that this is one of those people that shows up as a quote new in my through lines. So you can find it here as well, and that's pretty handy. Now, it would be nice to do the ones you haven't viewed and also do the publicly linked trees or common ancestors. So if you do the common ancestors, you kind of have to scroll down and look for the blue. Well, I'm not finding them because they're a little farther out. So in this case, the matches you haven't viewed, and now they show up, right away. So anyway, there you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you know other people that are using through lines, this will be handy to them. Pass the video on to them. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, think about doing so. It's handy. We come out with videos each week, sometimes a couple a week when I get a little extra time. And hopefully they're helpful. So, pass it around, subscribe, click the bell notification. That way when one comes out, you get an email or text letting you know that a new video's come out. And maybe it's a topic you like, maybe it's one that you don't, or maybe it's one that you'll find out later. Hey, I remember he posted a video on that, kind of like that, where you left off. I don't think anybody really likes it right now, but when we start picking back up after the new year, it's like, wait a minute, there was that video on that. What did it say? Where do I find that? And I think it's going to become more useful in the future than it is right now. But anyway, if you know somebody that would enjoy it, pass it along to them. Think about subscribing. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will talk to you soon.